2 days in a row. How do I do it? Good evening. Welcome to 5 Day with Jay. I am your host, J.R. Murdock. Thank you so much for joining me. It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. If you were following along yesterday, first topic today, same topic as yesterday, free ebooks. I'm still giving away Estelle and Billy Barbarian. Link in the description, link in the show notes, link everywhere, jrmurdock.com. Hop on over there, check it out, grab yourself a copy of Estelle, grab yourself a copy of Billy Barbarian. If you missed any of the previous giveaways of darn near every other book that I've had, drop me a line, say, hey Jay, I didn't get a copy, can you send me one? Absolutely my pleasure. I'll send one over to you. No problem, no obligation. Just stop in, say hi. If you want to follow along at home, you can follow the blog. You can follow me on any of the social medias that I have listed below as well. You can sign up for the newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter, I'll send you another free ebook. Again, just try and spread word of what I'm doing. The whole point of the free ebooks is to gear up getting ready to go wide. I started the setup to do that last night, but did not get to it because other things. Topic 2, tonight, same as last night, pup date. Gracie. Today was the day we finalized the adoption papers for Gracie. The lady came over who does the work for the Rosarito shelter and signed the papers, took her old tags with her. Gracie's now our puppy. We are now her forever home. Obviously, with any new animal coming to the home, it's a bumpy road. We didn't expect it to be a smooth, easy transition. We always knew there were going to be things like potty training, just her getting used to us. We don't know what her background is, and just why does this noise scare her? Why does it scare her when I pick up a broom? She completely freaks out, tail between the legs, runs away when I pick up a broom. Okay, don't like that. Definitely need to get her used to these types of things. But she'll adjust. We will get used to that. One of the reasons we had to get the broom out is because all the other dogs we've had in the past have been small dogs with long hair, so they don't shed. She is a shorter haired breed of a dog, therefore she does shed. She only has a single coat, not a big, thick double coat with an undercoat, so we need to sweep a little more often than we have. These things happen. It's a new dog, new experience. We're enjoying it. She has learned the doggy door for coming in, still hasn't figured it out for going out yet. Either that or she just doesn't want to go outside unless we encourage her strongly to go outside. Well, by that I mean we go outside first and hold the door open for her, and then she comes out with us. Again, all a learning phase. We know this. We're working with her. She will learn this. I had a bit of nostalgia last week coming into this week, and I picked up a book that I didn't even know existed, and I should have known. I know that there's novelizations of movies out there all the time, but I picked up a book, and that made me to get to thinking on some other movies in a similar vein. So I went back and I watched Stand By Me. Stand By Me with Will Wheaton, with River Phoenix, with Corey Feldman, and I forget the other boy's name. Young boys, 11, 12, 13 years old. It's based on the novella by Stephen King called The Body, where a group of boys go off on an adventure to go find a body of a dead kid that they heard about. They don't know if it's true, they don't know if it's real, they just heard about it and they believe it and they go off looking for it. The thing about the movie Stand By Me that struck me, and you'll see where I'm going with the other two that I discuss, is Stand By Me is very grounded in reality. It's grounded in its time. It is set in I believe the early 60s, and very true to form. The boys all do a phenomenal job acting in the movie, but it's very real. It's very of its time, but everything that happens in that movie you could see actually happening. all save the story that Will Wheaton's character tells a funny story, gets all the kids laughing, but the story, I mean, that's, they're using their imagination to imagine that part. So you can kind of get where it goes there. The second movie I watched because I was feeling nostalgic was The Sandlot. And The Sandlot is a larger group of kids, all about a baseball field. And these kids are all poorer kids on the wrong side of town, much like the kids from Stand By Me. They were from the wrong side of town. They were from the other side of the tracks. All of those sayings. And in The Sandlot, it was all about baseball and the kids playing baseball, but there was the beast behind the fence. If you've ever seen The Sandlot, you know what I'm talking about. In the kids' imagination, this dog is gigantic. It is massive. It is huge. It is dangerous. And there's that little element throughout the entire storytelling. Stand By Me had narration, and The Sandlot had narration. And it was interesting how they both were similar. It was told from an older person's perspective about what was happening to them at that time. Absolutely fascinating to see and compare these two movies, how they were similar, how they were different. Both set in an older time, in the 60s, as these 60s, it might have been early 70s for The Sandlot, but as these kids were growing up and what they were going through, with a little bit of narration sprinkled in from the older self. With The Sandlot, there's a little bit more fantasy there because of the dog and how the kid's imagination made that dog out to be more than what the dog actually was. Loved it. It was absolutely fascinating. Finally, I'm reading the book The Goonies. The Goonies is another one of those movies from that same time that came out in the mid 80s. But it's told around that time period. So it's a little bit different than the first two. But one of the things that I'm realizing from The Goonies, reading the book, I will go watch the movie when I'm done reading the book. But the interesting thing about the book is it's entirely told from one kid's perspective. And I do remember watching the movie, they did change to other kids at different points. And they fixed that in the book by using one child's perspective to have that child go, oh, and when so-and-so caught up to us, here's what they said happened, da-da-da-da-da, and then they relate that individual story. Interesting way to do it. I'm loving the storytelling aspect in The Goonies, the way the kid tells the story. But one thing that interests me the most is how fantastical The Goonies is compared to the other two. It's still set in a realistic type environment, but obviously with One-Eyed Willie, which I didn't get as a double entendre until I started reading the book, and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. How did I miss that? At any rate, there's more fantastical elements in The Goonies than there were in The Sandlot, and especially compared to to Stand By Me, where there's almost no fantasy. With The Sandlot and with Stand By Me, the one thing you have at the end is here's what happens to the kids after they grew up. With The Goonies, since it's told from the kid's perspective, and the kid is the narrator, there is no when we grew up, this is what happened. The story ends, and that's the end of the story, which is absolutely a fine place for it to end. It's fascinating the way it ended and the way that it related. I really enjoyed all three pieces of work. And it's really interesting to follow three completely different movies and see how they weave through a storyline, how they work their way through everything, how each piece ties together, how each kid adds the own little flavor and layer to the story and builds it into a bigger story. I guess the most interesting thing about Stand By Me, it was the four kids. Yes, adults were in the movie and in the story, but for the most part, it's the four kids. That's it. And then there's some grown-up kids that a little bit following them. That's it. When it came to The Sandlot, there were the 9 kids, but you only ever saw the one kid who's the narrator. You only ever saw his parents. You never saw the parents of the other kids. Yes, there's a street party, but you really don't know, okay, that's so-and-so's kid, that's so-and-so's kid. No, you really doesn't relate to that. And as a kid, growing up, I never really thought about other kids' parents when I was in school. I never thought about what their parents did for a living. We were kids. When we went off and did something, we went off and did something. It wasn't about the parents, it was about the kids. Didn't really stay over at other kids' houses when I was younger. We just didn't do that. We went home. We rode our bike somewhere. We rode our bike home. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. That's just the way it was growing up. But getting to the Goonies, completely different storytelling method. Again, using the kids as an impetus. One of the things that I found very interesting about all three did something rather similar in that there was hints and allusions to kids having adult magazines and having those adolescent thoughts. It was mostly hinted at in The Sandlot very subtly. In Stand By Me, they got the magazine with them. In the Goonies, same thing. They got the magazine. There's little things going on. In the narration of the book, the kid definitely, oh yeah, so-and-so found a skin magazine and he was doing this and that, and he's trying to hide it from the older kids. It was interesting that weaved through young adult material from the time, from the 80s. As a kid, I probably completely missed all of that happening and never even thought about it because I was a kid at the time. So when those movies came out, that wasn't anything that I was thinking about. As an adult, going back, watching these movies and reading the books, those are the things that, oh my gosh, these are kids. What? It's like, well, maybe we did that and I don't remember, but it just seems odd to find that in books and movies of that time. I haven't seen younger adult type movies of that vein that do similar things like that. Maybe it was just something of the era that was in there. I don't know. It was just fascinating. So yeah, I had a bit of nostalgia. I watched a couple of older movies. I thought about watching some other movies like Gremlins or ones like that, but I'm thinking, no, these three to me really stood out as coming of age type of stories from back in the day, and all the kids in all three movies are of different ages. I thought that was fascinating as well. Similar stories, different age groups. I had a great time reading it. Reading the book, The Goonies, watching The Sandlot, watching Stand By Me. I'd love to hear what you think about stories like this. What stories do you go back to for your childhood that you have nostalgia about? That you go back and you watch the movie or you reread the book and you remember watching it as your younger self and you're having that nostalgia of, oh yeah, but then there's the little things that pop up and you're like, I do not remember that whatsoever. Where did that come from? And then you have to think about it going, no, that was always there all along, and just whoosh, just breezed right on past you. Love to know. Love to hear from you. At any rate, it is extremely hot today. I am sweating like a fool in this room because the air, for whatever reason, does not get into this room. So I need to open that door, turn the fan back on. This has been 5 A Day with Jay. I've been